Continue. Awesome. It looks like we are anonymous. Looks like we are ready to become PMs. Okay, so I'm Summertime Penguin. And really quick, what is PM? Figure out what you know. Those who don't, you're the job of a PM. So you work at a company that produces products. There's a lot of companies that produce products and goods and services, all of them. So a lot of companies have PMs. Fewer companies have entry-level PMs. Much more companies have like PM roles in general. The reason for that is the job of the PM is to answer one question and do two things. You want to decide what should we build and why, and you want to make sure it gets built. And then if it's built, you want to make sure it's as successful as can be. The word as can be is important because sometimes there's only so much you can do and the product is destined to fail. And if that happens, you figure out why and you just push forward. So what the fuck does that mean? What does that mean that you are answering these questions, making sure stuff's getting built? In practice, it means you write documents that answer the question, what should we build and why? How do you make sure it gets done? You set a lot of meetings with a lot of people and you DM everyone until everything is done. And then to make sure things are getting done and like done in a manner that's likely to make them successful, you help with wherever you need help. So if people need help making designs, you go design. If someone needs help writing code, you write code. Your job is to do whatever it takes to make this successful. Sometimes that means writing marketing material, basically anything. That was very like abstract. So let's take a look at like what it really means, what that looks like. So some people in this room might recognize this document, but so this is what you. So this is, for example, this is adding a new feature. This is a document deciding what we should build and why. It's saying we should be able to highlight things and then comment on those things we highlighted. So think of this like Medium or something where you can highlight something in an article and you can comment on it. So this document is trying to answer the question, what we should build and why. Okay, let's take a look at it. So what is this and why is it worth building? It says, hey, this is the problem users are facing. The problem that people are facing is that people love starting discussions based on something very specific in an article. But it's hard to do right now because we don't have the ability to comment on things you highlighted. Why do we know that this will be successful? We've seen from past data that retention, which is like how likely to come back to the product, is very strongly correlated to reading and creating comments. So anything you can do to leave more comments is likely going to like lead to improvements in the product. Okay. And this is like more data on why we should do it. How do we know if it's successful or not? Oh, by the way, pause. Change your name to something, and turn your video off and change your name to something anonymous. Like my name is Summertime Penguin. The goal is I want everyone to feel very comfortable like responding in chat. So if they're anonymous, it's hard to figure out. You feel very comfortable like saying what the hell you want. Okay, so we tested. This is like what should be done. Like this is what it should do. Here's like the actual design. So this document basically says here's what you should build and here's why you should build it. And that's what you do. And then you just keep DMing everyone until it gets built. That's most of the job of the PM. How does one get a job as a PM? You apply online, ideally with a referral. If you have like 5 to 10 years of experience, you apply to the role called product manager. Most of us don't have that, sadly. So we apply to roles generally called associate product manager, which is like entry-level product management. Sometimes you have to do a written assignment, which is like, basically it's like an interview, except they give you a question, they ask you instead of talking about it, write it out. There's usually between 4 and 7 interviews. If you're applying for an internship, you should expect closer to 4 interviews in total. If you're applying for a full-time job, you should expect closer to 7 interviews in total. And then because you guys are beasts, you guys get the offer. Okay. I'm going to stop here for like a few seconds, and I want you to like feel free to drop any arbitrary questions. Also, I have the link to the slides, Alex. Alex, you should probably change your name, so I don't know it's Alex. But let me share this. Share, name of the link, viewer, copy link, done. All right, sweet. Can you give me a why like a yes, Y for yes, if you can see the link. And if you can click on it, it actually works. Yes from the future makes sense. Legit. Swifty. SpongeBob. Solid. Okay. Ferris. All right. Beautiful. So things working. I could have also looked here. Anyway. So what are the types of interviews? You have product design interviews. And these interviews, the kinds of questions you can expect to get is like, how do you improve Slack? How do you improve an existing product? Then you have analytical, which is usually one of estimate the number of something, or some kind of metric that we have as a company changed. Our retention reduced, the number of customers reduced, some number changed. And it's usually not great. It's usually like, oh shit, like we screwed up. Or like something went wrong, we don't know what. And use a PM to respond to it. So the question is, this happened, what do you do? And you're like, walk through what you're gonna do. Then you have a technical interview, which is how do you build something at a technical level? Usually one of how do you build X thing, or how does some technical thing work? And then your strategy, which is one of 4 types generally. It's either like, we're going to enter a new industrial market. Should we do it, right? Should we enter some new market or new industry? Hey, we have this product, how do we market it? We have a product, we want to figure out how much to charge for it. So you have like a pricing type question. And then the last one, this is also quite funky, is how do we kill a product? Like Google has killed many products. Google Hangouts was killed. Killing a product is a very hard thing to do. And it's like, you have like be very strategic about it. So the question is, how do you end or deprecate a certain product? So all the users who had it now will no longer have it. How do you go about doing that in a reasonable way? Okay. Now, how do you prep? So you want to be a boss at all these interviews. How do you do it? Depends on how much time you have to prep. If you have 6 months to prep, 6 months or more, like you have 6 months, you have a year, whatever. If you are currently a sophomore or junior, if you're any year and you intend to apply next year as well, this is the bucket you fall in. Your steps are: 1, watch Startup School. Startup School is a YouTube series by Y Combinator, which is an accelerator that teaches startups how do you successfully start a startup. Most startups in the beginning tend to have only one product. Like if you think of Slack, like Slack has Slack. Like Google has 100 million products, but Slack has one product. So the rules that apply to building one successful product at a startup generally apply to building one successful product at a big company. So this series is beautiful. Like it'll cover a lot more depth than I can cover in this sort of setting. Okay, then I want you to find a co-founder, maybe someone in this room, and the first time you do it, like don't obsess with finding like everything needs to be perfect. The first time you do this, your goal is just to learn to like do it. Like everything could be chaotic, everything could be wrong. Maybe you don't have the best, maybe you guys are not the best at working together, but you push past everything. In the beginning, the first time you do it, your goal is not to build a successful product, is to build a product. And the lessons you get from that are insane. A lot of APMs tend to have startup products in college. Okay, so launch product, aim to get 100 active users, and at least 5+ people working on the product, because in the real world you have team of that size or bigger. And then read a newsletter called Lenny's Newsletter. If you're an M product, you have that. If you don't have it, Google it. It is worth paying for if your goal is to become a PM. It's not terribly expensive, but it is insanely valuable. It covers like what the heads of product that every company is thinking about. All right. If you have 2 months, so some of you are intending to apply in the winter semester for APM positions. There's not that many, but there are there. Like I think Twitter opens closer to that. LinkedIn maybe does. They still have it open, and then, but there's a few companies that have it open in the winter. So you want to apply in the winter. What do you want to do? You want to get referrals. You want to read a book called Cracking the PM Interview. This is very specifically like, how do you do well the interviews? So a lot of what you'll see in today's call is that's the absolute basics, as in like what everyone reads. What I did is I added more things and like specific points and nuances, beyond what the book will cover. But the book is you have to get the basics down before you like cover other things. So very useful. YouTube channel called Exponent. Watch it, beautiful stuff, and do a shit ton of mocks. It's like even people who are either prepping for PM right now or have already like prepped before. I did around 70 mocks. So I spent around, each mock was an hour. So I spent about 70 hours in total just doing mocks and getting like feedback on my mocks. That's way high. Most people do not do that. A lot of people are usually between the 10 and 20. I know people who've done like less than like 5 and gotten jobs. So the more, the better. Generally, yeah. All right. Now you have 1 week. You need to crush this. What do? You skim cracking the PM interview. You watch a bunch. You like speed watch a bunch of videos in Exponent, and then you mark it as many videos as you can. This is like how you get a PM job in 1 week. That was a lot. I totally talked way too much. I'm gonna stop here. Spam any question you have. No one knows who you are, so feel free to be very blunt. I'm gonna stop for like a minute or two. What questions do people underestimate? Let's go back. Can freshmen get any internships in product management? Good question. Okay, so that's a variation of the previous question, which is what interviews we will not tend to prepare for. Okay, so at all, but I had no idea till all. Yeah, you know how is that you have no idea how to? Oh yeah, there you go. Okay, makes sense. Sweet. So product design, I feel like most of the prep for. I'll say this: the difference between good and great estimation questions is hard. Like most people are very, very similar at them. But to become like good to great, that stands out. Also, by the way, Shreya, welcome. Do you wanna stay with your video closed and change your Zoom name to make it anonymous? The idea is that if you're anonymous, like there's less barrier to asking a question in chat. So feel free to click like participants and then on the bottom of Zoom and then change your name to something like, I don't know, Summertime Penguin. Okay, so analytic I think is underestimated. System design is hard to prepare for. So it's very, if you've not built something, trying to quickly learn system design is hard. It's doable. I know people in M product have done it successfully, but it's hard to do. Like building something is the best way to learn system design. And most people don't actually know what the kind of strategy questions are. Like I see everyone preparing for the first strategy question, like should we enter a new market? And almost no one prepares for the last 3 types. Good call with live transcription. That also probably means I should speak slower. That is, I want you to anonymously like throw that in chat. Yeah, speak slower. Okay. So let's go to other questions. How do you find people to mock interview with? Great question. You go to M Product Slack. If you're not in it, try and join it. And you essentially apply, like you ask someone, hey, do you want to mock? You put it like a message in a public channel. I want to mock together. That's one option. The other option that just came to my mind is, where's my Slack? Okay. There's this Slack channel called Lewis Lynn's interview thing, and it's just like, it's how many people? It's like an obscene amount of people. Hold on. Yeah, it's like 28,000 people, and they have like channels dedicated to requesting mocks and asking other PMs for help. So this is really helpful. Let me actually add the link to this. See, thank you for asking questions. Like these are things I wouldn't remember if you guys didn't like ask questions. Okay, invite people. Copy invite link. What's up, Nisreen? Let's add this to. I should probably have like a arbitrary like resources, and then getting mocks. Sweet, good call. All right, let's go back to questions. For those of you who joined late, we basically covered like here's the 4 different types of interview questions. We're about to go into them in more depth as well. Okay, where's my question break slide? There you go. Okay. Can a freshman get interested in product management? Not common in the summer, except for one exception I know, with the university. So there's like a bunch of departments in university, especially, let me add this, academic innovation, UMesh. I know they take PMs. So this is a cool way of doing it, generally, is to reach out to like organizations that are building products. So if you guys have used like a lot of like Michigan's online course thing. Basically, if you think of any entity that produces products, but they're not really thought of as a tech company, there's a good chance they want PMs in some capacity, but they don't have it because people are not applying. Like these guys, they don't have an official like PM role, but they build products, aka they have the need for someone to build products well. So that's one option. This is not definitely not buy. This is not the end of everything. It's not the only thing resource you have. UMesh might take freshman PMs. Boom. Okay, let's go through more questions. How many jobs do people typically apply to? Great question. The honest answer is there's not that many. At APM, there's not that many. So this is a list of every single most available internships and jobs. So let's drop that here. Available jobs to apply to. Now let's do one more question. And then you can your question. Okay, fair enough. Okay, is prepping PMR sales consulting? Great question. Yes and no. The strategy questions are pretty similar. So the strategy question of like, should I enter market is pretty similar to consulting, and the question of estimation is pretty similar. Product and system design are very different. If you want to PM, but you prepare. Okay, great question. So Raindrop asks, what skills in the actual recruiting process are relevant to the job? The honest answer is everything. Like this is one of the few careers where I think the interview process is very representative of what you do as like pretty close to what you do as a real person, at least in the first thing. So if you go back to what PMs do, they answer this question, what should you build and why, and they do these two things. It's pretty hard to test these two things in an interview, right? Like you can't go, hey, let's work for 3 months together, but you can test the first thing quite well. Like you basically ask them to do exactly this. You ask the question, what should we build and why? And consequently, if they do that well, they're probably going to do well on the job. So for me, I think doing the recruiting process made me a better PM. Okay, I'm going to stop with questions. I'm going to come back to them. I have question time at the end. Sweet. But keep dropping questions. Like if something is specifically relevant, I will like, Yash from the future, thank you for dropping the link to the slide deck. Good call. Okay, let us begin with the actual, how do you do interviews? So first question is a product design style question. And the question is, how would you improve Slack? I'm going to stop for 6 minutes. And I want you to like drop all thoughts you can get. Forget about any order. Just drop arbitrary thoughts on Zoom chat. Like if I want to, how would you approach this question, right? Would you think about, how do you even do it? Like, do you have any thoughts? Do you have any direct features that come to mind? How would you approach this question? So if this was an interview, in points, just drop what you think. Drop what you think on Zoom chat. And the more wrong answers you give, the more I will love you, because then I will recognize things. I go, oh, I thought that was the case as well, and I'll be able to point out why it's different. And I guarantee other people think the same. Also, you're anonymous. Sweet. So let's see your thoughts. Start with what you see, UI UX. Okay, so start with UI UX. Okay. What else? Make UI. Okay, that's an option. Single out problem. Single out user problem. What else? What is the objective? Who is the user we're solving for first? Okay, that's an option. Define a user in specific pain point. Okay, interesting. Very cool. Ask 5 of your friends whether they dislike about Slack. Ask 5 of your friends what they dislike about Slack. Cool. User groups. What else? What else could you do? User interviews, a cool idea. Yeah, interview people. I'm gonna sort of put that with this similar idea, right? Talk to people. Very cool. Sweet. What else? So okay, I'm seeing a lot of like figure out the user problem. Okay, great. Now let's say we figure out the user problem. What's next? What do you next? So I'm hearing someone say A/B tests. That's a cool idea. Go to Slack's like reviews, maybe on like some website or on the App Store. That's a good idea. Define the improvement. Okay. See what else? Enumerate options. Define metrics and what success would look like. When you say enumerate options, you're like saying come up with multiple options. Is that what you're saying? Vibes. And then define success metrics. Okay, what else do you want to do? You should have 3 more minutes. Let's go. What else will you do? So right, so far we have stuff like, do user tests, come up with input metrics, figure out who you want to focus on, evaluate on engineering time. Okay. Evaluate what on engineering time, pros and cons. The options you come up with for what? Like the things you'd build. Same thing, the things you build. Like the ideas you are like, okay, I have this feature, I did this idea, you like that. Oh, makes sense, sweet. Okay. What else? What other thoughts do we have? Compare with competition and features. Compare with competition. This is so small. What else? What improvements are most efficient to implement on a time resource to improve rate? So what the most efficient to implement on a time over resources. So I think that's, yeah, but yeah, this is like the idea of you want to compare them, figure out what's most valuable per unit of resource or per unit of time you have. Make sense? Yep. Resource time ranking of ideas. Sweet. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. Let's continue. So I'm gonna now. The question is, how would you improve Slack? I'm gonna show you what I did for my interviews. And this link is accessible, and this link has not just like product design, but how I approach basically almost all of my interviews. Okay, let's go to product. So here's what I do. First, I ask why. So why do you want to improve Slack? Maybe sometimes they have a specific goal in mind. Oh, we want to get more users, or we want to increase retention, or so they have some goal in mind. Usually they will say, you decide. They won't actually give you the why, but it's always worth asking. The next thing is you figure out, who could I improve Slack for? I could improve Slack for us, right? We're a group of students in school who use Slack for like school organizations. And a lot of people use Slack for that. Slack is also used by, medium, startups that are growing. Slack is used by some really large companies. Who do we want to improve Slack for? The word MECE is fancy. It basically stands for mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. It's a fancy word. It basically says, look for groups that are like somewhat independent of each other. So like, a very obvious, easy example of someone that's MECE is, I'm not saying you would use this here, but an example of something that's a MECE user segment or a way to come up with groups that are like guaranteed to be independent is like age, like people between the age of 0 and 20, 20 and 40, 40 and 60, 60 and 80, like 80 plus, right? It's very obvious that a person who's in the first group is not in any of the groups, aka they're mutually exclusive. And collectively exhausted, as in if you add up everyone from every age group, you're going to get every single person on the planet. So you want to find, ideally, you want to look for groups that are collectively, like, if you add up everyone, all the groups, you get every possible person, and a single person is in no more than one group. Hard to do and not necessary. So what like, if you can do MECE, like extra bonus points, if it's hard to come up with different groups that are like awesomely independent, totally fine. So for Slack, the groups I came up with is there's basically companies and institutions. And institutions very broadly defined. Companies generally range from small startups that are just getting started, 5 employees, medium, so medium-sized companies, you can say like anywhere between 30, first one can be less than 30, second can be between 30 and 200. And then you have groups that are larger companies, 300-400 plus, maybe 1,000 plus. You can come at companies like, and then institutions. institutions are like University of Michigan, academic groups. I tried to convince my family to use Slack instead of WhatsApp. It didn't go really well. But I swear to God, when I have a family, they're on Slack. Like I love Threads way too much to not use Slack for my family. Like the number of WhatsApp messages that like make no sense one after the other. It's like my dad posts like, oh, here's a funny joke. Oh, Yash, can you do this for me? Here's another funny joke. And I go, I have a point about the previous thing you said. And like, yes, WhatsApp has reply, but like you can't like, it's not elegant to like keep track of many messages to one thing. So I'm a huge fan of Slack for families. Anyway, most people are not because it doesn't feel as homey. Okay, so now you have a bunch of different user groups, right? You have small company, medium company, so on and so forth. And then what you want to do is you want to prioritize users based on a large TAM with unmet needs. Fancy. What it basically says is make a list of all your groups and figure out A, which of these groups is the largest? Is it medium-sized companies, small companies? Is it, humongous companies? Is it families? Like which of these groups have the most number of people in them? AKA they have a large total addressable market, which is TAM. Also, wait, just so I'm not an absolute idiot. Are you guys seeing this Notion page here? Can you type Y in the chat if you are? Okay. I was like, am I talking for so long and these guys can't see it? That'd be terrible. Okay, so thank you, Monkey. Thank you, I. So you have TAM, and then who's the largest, and you also rank them based on unmet needs. Unmet needs is the word unmet is important here because a lot of people have needs. Sometimes there are competitors doing these things, so the need is not as unmet. Like even though they have the need, for example, let's say in Slack, maybe you have the need to like, okay, Slack added video call pretty recently, but you could have said like, oh, our users probably want video call, but oh, there's a lot of competitors, so maybe it's not as high priority. Whatever, you could argue something like that. But you want to think about a group of people for whatever reason that is likely to have high unmet needs, aka they have needs, and for whatever reason, they're not being met by competitors. So for Slack, I said, I want to focus on medium-sized companies that are growing really fast based on two things. One, if you rank them in terms of size, there's the most number of people at smaller startups, and then I think about the same number of people in like medium-sized startups and like really large startups, because large startups have like lots of people in each of them, and there's fewer of them. But there's a lot of medium-sized startups with fewer people each. So I said those two groups are about the same size. Maybe even medium is bigger. My intuition could be wrong here. And you can like talk to your interviewer. If you like make an assumption that seems flawed, they'll just go, oh, actually, I think this is bigger. And you go, okay. And you like try and see if that makes sense to you. But let's say medium is like one of the larger groups, medium-sized companies. And how do I claim they have the most unmet needs? The reason is there's a lot of need that large companies they experience problems with scaling. Like as you have more people, you experience more and more communication problems, right? Like Slack at its core is about large communication problems. Small companies have fewer communication problems because there's fewer people. As you're transitioning from medium to big, you have very strong communication problems because the dynamics of communication change very dramatically. And I think that it's not met by competitors because a lot of large companies have their own inbuilt solutions. Like Google uses their own internal Google chatting system. They have so when you become really big, communication is important enough that you build internal solutions. So these needs are like somewhat met. What we want to target is the companies that are medium, about to become big because they're going to experience those needs, but they're not met yet because they don't have the resources to like, hey, let's build a bunch of internal tools. So I focus on medium-sized companies. And then you want to figure out, okay, what are the problems these guys have? You can do this by going through this. So you want to have, this is actually a thing that most people don't do. I think is very important. You want to come up with user needs. Here's the needs of medium-sized companies using Slack. And you can do it. Most people have like, not most is a strong word, but a lot of people will do it somewhat arbitrarily. They'll take a second to think and they'll go, okay, here's some needs. The problem with that is it's not clear that you found all the needs because you randomly guessed a bunch of needs. Yeah, that's the main problem. It's not obvious you got all the needs, and consequently, you may not have gotten the most important needs because you randomly guessed the needs. You want to have some kind of method where the method somewhat guarantees you're going to find most needs. Peter, how are you? Okay. Peter is silent. That's what Peter is. Okay, Peter, can you change your just keep your video off and change your name to something anonymous so that when you send a message in chat, it's like, we don't know it's you. So you're more free to type whatever you want. Sick. Okay. Sweet. So you want to have some method to find needs. An easy method to guarantee you're going to find most needs is to go through a customer journey. A customer journey is basically, here's the steps users take in our app. And we're going to look at all these steps and figure out where is the highest, like, which seems really painful or which seems like it's a problem. So I said, let's look at what people do with Slack. And I said, oh, you want to, I just came up with a bunch of like core things you want to do. One of those core things that I came up with, and I went through a journey for each. I said, one of the core things you do, a core experience in Slack, is someone has a question about something, about your code, maybe about how you should make this change. What thoughts on like, hey, we use this process in our design. Do you want to change that process? And, how does this process work? Questions that people keep asking again and again. Like every time a new employee joins, you basically ask the same question again. And then people respond in Slack. And that's a very common experience where you have, repeated questions happening. They're a question that really should have like an official answer. The way big companies solve this is they have extensive documentation of everything. Like they have websites, internal, like Google has their own internal websites that explain all the tools and processes so that if you have a question, you can like search. Google has their own internal Google search. You can search and you'll find like, oh, this is how I use this tool because someone documented it. At a startup, the kind of documentation that like is useful is very hard to do. But what you have is a lot of people just responding on Slack in real time to these requests. I said that's a strong need that's relative. Like, so I came with a bunch of needs. I went through the journey. I said, okay, here's the different goals we want to achieve, and here's kind of how they achieve it. And then I said, okay, here's possible needs. So I come up with possible needs, and then I prioritize the one I just mentioned, which is it's hard to like convert existing things into like it's very time consuming and painful to keep repeating answers to the same questions, things that should have permanent answers. So the way I prioritized that one was I said, okay, which is a need I think most people in this segment face. So we talked about earlier, we came up with medium-sized company. I said most people in medium-sized company experience this problem. The need is intense, as in it's a pain in the ass, like in terms of time lost. And more importantly, if someone wants to do something and it takes them a lot of time to figure out how to do it, you're losing dollars as a company. Like if something can be done faster, you save dollars. So it really matters. And I don't think there are great solutions today that require the kind of that require easy effort. So I said we should pick that problem. And the problem was, how do we make it very easy to convert important messages that are in some sense eternal in their usefulness, like it'll always be useful. For example, like if you look at our Notion, right? Like before I made this document, I dropped this message. Hello, please open. Is it open? Yeah, here. I dropped a thread on Slack with here's what you should do for product design reviews. And it's basically the same thing. If someone asks the question again, I have to either organize a massive session or convert it all and put it onto a document, right? This is something that should be ever accessible. It's not. It's hard to lose and hard to come back to. So I said, a lot of people face this problem. It's worth solving. Let's solve it. And then I brainstormed a bunch of solutions. This one is more random. Like it's okay to randomly come with solutions, but ideally you can like break down the need in some interesting way. Usually you can ask why. Like, why is this need happening? Is this need happening because it's so hard, people don't have a place to do something forever? I have Notion, so it's like I don't have a place, but I still choose to on Slack. So maybe that's not the issue. You can talk about why the need exists, and you can like target a specific reason why and solve it that way. So I came up with a bunch of solutions, and then I said, okay, which one should we do? And a lot of you guys pointed this out in your thoughts. Is one way to rank them is based on how much engineering and time and effort it would take to make this solution exist, and how good it would be at solving the problem. What's the impact? So I came up with a bunch of problems, and I said, I came up with a bunch of solutions, and the one I came up with that I liked specifically was an easy button where you can like mark a message as everlasting. It adds it on some like connects to like Notion or whatever website you want and creates a page for it and makes it. And when people do searches for questions, like do the search on Slack, we also search there and we prioritize results from those things because they are likely useful almost all the time. Especially if you notice a new employee, we know this result is likely even more useful to them because they're about to ask them a very annoying question. We can even do things like if I type the question on Slack, we can also do a search simultaneously, like, hey, someone's already asked this question. Just look at the answer instead of asking someone to send it to you again. So that's kind of the solution I came up with. And then, how are you going to measure this successful? I said two things. I said you want to measure usage, adoption. Is this getting used? If it's not getting used, it's not useful. Two, is it being used? Other people are using it again and again. So if I've used it once, am I going to use it next week or the week after that? Am I basically saving, and am I searching for results? So those are sort of results I came up with. MVPs, you just talk about the solution a little bit more, like, hey, this, instead of building the entire thing out, where as you're typing, search results show up and building the entire thing, how can we ensure that when we build it, it's going to be successful? You build a very basic version of it, and you see if that's being used, and if that's being used, go ahead and build the full thing. Otherwise, it's a waste of like, oh, I built a basic version, no one used it. I guarantee you it means that no one's going to use the full version because you're going to waste more resources. So with this one, the MVP I said was, you basically put an easy button that converts it into Notion, and when people search, it also searches Notion, because a lot of startups use Notion. That's an MVP. And then when you build, if that works and if the metrics for that are good, you can do you can add features and do a bunch of stuff. Okay. One thing that this is something people don't talk about, what is interesting is a lot of people talk about metrics after I launch the feature. I'm going to launch the feature, I'm going to see if it's successful. There are oftentimes things you can do before you launch, see if it's going to be successful. Things like UX tests. You can see, what's it called? You can make it on Figma or like some kind of design tool, and you can give it to people and see if they like understand what it's doing. Yeah, usability walkthroughs, exactly. You can see people's reactions. Like when I show this feature, do people go insane? Another cool one that is not often done because it's a bit risky is if you think there is a competitor that sort of does it but not well, you can tell one of your a few people to start using that thing and see if they use it. If they start using the bad competitor version, even though it sucks for whatever reason, you go, okay, this is an important enough problem and solution that even if it's kind of shitty, people are willing to use it, then you know what to use. So you can do a bunch of stuff even before you launch to see if something useful. And then you want to say, okay, now we know we want to build it at this point, right? We've decided what we're going to build, and we've justified it quite strongly. Now, how do we actually build it? What's going to be required? Yeah, also thank you for answering awesome questions in Slack. That seems like cool class. Yeah, if you guys see questions that you can answer on Zoom chat, please go for it. Thank you, Peanut Butter and Tom Cruise, for the thoughts. It's also fun to say Peanut Butter and Tom Cruise in the same sentence. Okay. You may now laugh on Zoom chat. Thank you. Okay, so you can answer questions like, how do you acquire customers? How do you do you need any partnerships with companies? What's the sales team going to do? Is this going to change anything legally? Do we need more customer support? Blah blah. It's these are the things you want to say with hey, we're going to build this, and here's the timeline. Here's what we're going to do month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, month 5. The best product design interviews in the world end with a roadmap of maybe it's hard to say exactly what month, but at least an ordered list of what you're going to do in order. First we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this and this and this. Sweet. Okay, that was a lot of thought, spamming. Questions? Drop thoughts in Zoom chat. Oh, what is this? You guys hear me? Am I stuck? Hello?
We can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me? Sweet. My computer's flipping out. Okay. Can't really see chat messages right now. What is going on? Hold on. Boom. Give me a second if you guys can hear me, to figure out what's going on with Zoom. Okay, can someone speak up and tell me if they can hear me?
We hear you.
Okay,
Yes.
sweet. Okay, because I can't see Zoom chats anymore for whatever reason, let's get a little creative. Can someone drop the link to this presentation on Slack? Oh, sorry, on Zoom chat. And I'm going to, if you have a, this is slightly annoying. Can you just drop comments? Like if you have a thought anywhere, I come to the slide I'm on and just go, like drop a comment. Can you guys drop comments? Is the more interesting question. Change, comment, done. Yeah, can someone try leaving a comment and tell me if they can leave a comment? Are you guys able to leave comments? Sweet, Nikhil, sweet. We lost a little bit of anonymity here, which is unfortunate, but we will push past this. Okay, it's unfortunate with Zoom. Okay, anyway, so let's drop questions. What question do you have about product design? That was a lot of information. But yeah, drop comments on the slide deck. And can someone drop the link to the slide deck also on the chat so other people can do this? I'm gonna give us like 2 or so minutes to drop questions. Okay. I'm trying to figure out how I feel about restarting Zoom. Because I'm not really seeing a lot of comments. I don't know if you guys are not able to, or you're not, like, it's just not working. So I'm going to restart Zoom. Very sad. We're going to hop back. Just join the Zoom link again. All right. See you guys in a second. Oh, no way. It didn't completely kill me. Look at that. Sweet. Do we all also have our fake names? We have our fake names. Okay, sweet. Let's keep going. Chat. Sweet, I can see chat again. Okay, sorry. We are back on Zoom. You can drop your anonymous comments in Zoom. Okay, so let's wait for another minute. Feel free to drop your comment to your questions in Zoom chat about product design questions. Okay. It seems PM interview at the Peanut Butter says, it seems like PM interview at the end of the day really just tests your creativity. Sorry, what you learn in your major classes of the interview. It's an interesting mix of, it's an interesting mix of creativity, and it's also pretty logical. Like, to justify why something must be done is like, so okay, let's talk about what creativity is, by the way. Like, I generally separate creativity and logic in the way that if the best way to come to the best solution is to randomly think of things, creativity, that I think is a very creative thing. For example, if you're building games, you're making music, there's a lot of like, you have lots of random thoughts, and if you put them together, you get an awesome thing. So games and music are very creative. There is creativity in PMs, and sometimes the best solutions are like you come up with them very randomly. It's also very aggressively logical. Like, you are picking what you are, like when I'm saying, hey, I want to build comments. Like, I'm not just going, oh, I think comments are worth building. I'm going, this is the exact relationship between a comment being created and how likely you're to be retained in the 4th week. Like I'm very aggressively and very logically justifying why something is worth building, why the solution is worth doing. Like I have a very solid reasoning, and I run tests and so on and so forth. Right. So it's not, is it only creative? No. There's a creativity in coming up with cool solutions? Absolutely. What classes are good? For the product design question, I think I have never experienced any good classes in Michigan. That's also, I imagine SI is the best shot at having good classes. And I remember someone dropped a cool SI class that might help with this. The best way in my head to do product design is to like keep in touch with what cool products are doing. So for example, like if you're on the M product Slack, we have this cool thing called articles and products where we just talk about like cool things products are doing. Like YouTube launched Thanks. Whoa, why did they launch that? Vicious landing page is extremely unique. Why did they do that? So constantly thinking of, oh, look at this, Facebook added threads. Keeping track of what products are doing opens your mind to all the possible options. So in that sense, you have a little more creativity in the way you can think of solutions because you know what solutions exist out there. So I would say, next question. What do we do if you have not used the product they're asking for improvements for? What if we do not know its customer base, commercial user pain points? You can usually say, hey, I don't know what this product is. And they will do one of two things, like, oh, don't worry, give you another product. And that's totally reasonable. Like if you don't know the product, it's hard to do anything. Alternatively, they will answer questions for you, right? Like they'll go, oh yeah, it's fine. Ask me what question you want to know the answer to, and I'll give you an answer. Like if you ask me, what does the app do? Then I can answer like, yeah, the app does this. And then you go, oh, thank you. And then once you know what the app does, you can sort of guess who uses it. So you can just ask questions to your interview, and they tend to be very conversational. Sweet. Charlton asks, how long would you spend on research for a topic like this? And would your answers be mostly pre-formulated? Great question. So this is all real time in the interview. As in, this is a 45-minute interview, and you have to do the entire thing in the interview. What helps is I've already like product. Wait, where I go? Where's my Notion? Is it a behavior question? Come on. Yeah. So what I've done is I've thought through some different products that I really like. Like Soup, I really like this email client. I like Slack. There's a few others I've thought through, and I've already like laid out, if I got an interview about this, what would I do? Like I'd already sort of pre-thought through Slack a little bit. The idea I ended up giving was about, hey, how do we convert content and documentation? I'd already thought of this like well in advance. So in case they ask me about Slack, I'm ready to go. So it's theoretically in real time. And like most interviews, you're not going to know the product, but you want to prepare for as many products as you can. Like you want to like imagine they ask you a question of how would you improve it? And the idea is, in the rare case they give it to you, you can go, oh, snap, like I know the answer. And I didn't really do the snap in the interview, but yeah, okay. So how long would you spend on research for topic like this? So like, can you actually, Charlton, does that answer your question? Like, I'm not spending any time doing research if I haven't the product before. Like I'm thinking in real time. Is that what you meant when you ask how much research am I doing, or are you asking when I think in advance and I'm preparing the answer in advance, how long do I think for? Do you want to clarify that on chat? Oh, so when I'm preparing, like, it's so it's not like it happens at the same time. So what I do is I think like I'll spend maybe like 30 minutes like for like actual interview amount of time roughly. And I'll start, okay, I like this product, let me think about it. And while I'm preparing, I'm like, I spend maybe 30 minutes on coming up with an answer that I think is really cool. And then over time, you're in the shower and you have a thought, you go, oh my God, that'd be so sick. And you come back and you add it to your list. So I'd say initially I spend 30 minutes and I keep updating it whenever I have cool thoughts, and I talk to some people and they go, oh, have you thought about this? And I go, oh my God, that's crazy. So there's a lot of like, maybe 30 minutes originally, just put down some initial thoughts and then let the shower, give me the rest of my ideas for the most part. The ELP was pretty good. Actually, you know what? Let's drop those. So there are a few things that you could actually, I take this back. There was actually a few things that really helped. ELP helped me. M product helped me. This thing called innovation and action helped me. Innovation and action is like Optimize, isn't it? A startup accelerator. I think they're more undervalued. I think they're better than Optimize, but no one knows about them. So I recommend looking at them. And when I built my first thing in college, I went through their program and I learned a lot of like actually product ideas through them. So maybe not classes, but definitely things in Michigan you can do. Okay, what else? Okay, yeah, I think these are the questions. Let's move on. So next question. Okay, we're gonna do strategy. So strategy questions tend to be, like we talked about earlier. One of, should I enter this market? How should I price something? How should I market it? We're not gonna have time to give all, like, I'm not gonna have time to go through all of them, but every time you'll see my personal framework, you come to this page, and this page lays it out. Like for every type, here's how you answer it. Yeah, but let's go through one of them. So here's my question for you guys. What are some things you want to think about when you ask the question, should Google enter the residential real estate market? How do you even go about answering question? Drop some thoughts. Same as before. Completely random, can be completely wrong. Wrong answer my favorite. All right, and let's give you guys like a few minute timer. Photocyte forces, okay. Photocyte forces, very cool. SWOT analysis, awesome. Very cool. What else? What else can we do? How would you answer the question of should Google enter the residential real estate market? Yeah, absolutely first. MECE framework. MECE framework. What else? How else do you answer the question of should Google enter this real estate market? Find out motivation by entering the market. Motivation behind entering the market. Whoa, go away. Okay, sweet. What else? Cost, business goal, long term, short term. Okay, long term and short term. Cost benefits analysis. Okay, sweet. Cost benefit analysis. Okay, sweet. What else? Okay, let's say you've used all these different frameworks and you've decided whether you should enter it or not. I use something like cost benefits analysis. You know whether it like is part of the business goals. Now, how do you do it? Like, how should Google enter the real estate market? Drop some thoughts. Like, yeah, what does it even mean to enter the real estate market? Like, what should they do? Acquisition was in-house development. So you can acquire some company or you can build something in-house. Thank you, Anon. For a second, I read it as QAnon. Like, how do you pronounce QAnon? 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 Yeah. I was like, interesting name choice. Okay. What else? Research on the viability of the market and if the market is saturated. So research on viability of market and if the market is saturated. Big words, big and correct words broadly. Okay. Sweet. Any other last minute thoughts? How much time do we have? For like 3 minutes. Look into specific locations that would coexist with brand identity. Look into specific locations that would coexist with brand. What does that mean? What do you mean locations? Are you talking about like physical places? What do you think, SpongeBob? Like the type of areas. What do you mean? So like I would look into whether I should enter. Oh, I see your point. So this is like, should I enter the San Francisco market? And whether is that could yeah, okay, interesting. So that's an interesting question. Usually, I guess that could be real, right? That's a question you could get, which is, should we enter this physical location with our product? So usually the question is like, should we build a product in this industry? I mean, that's what they say when they mean market. But that's actually a very reasonable question you could get. You could say, hey, we serve this product in this area. Should we serve it in this area? That's a cool question. I've actually not thought about that, but that's like a very reasonable question to get, because it's a thing you actually do, right? Like first you launch in the US. Usually, if you're a US based company, then you launch in other countries, and you have to decide which country to launch in. So that's a very real question you can get. That's a good point. It would be it's like one you want when you're researching viability, you want to research location viability. That makes sense. Okay. I'm going to combine both of what you said and say location viability. Okay, sweet. Now I'm going to say tell you how I answered the question, and I don't want you to treat this as like the way to do it. This is just sort of how I did it. And there are other ways to do these things. So first I ask, and you guys mentioned sort of the business goal. So what is our objective? Like, why are we trying to enter new markets? Sometimes they'll answer it, sometimes they won't. If they don't answer it for you, the interview doesn't tell you, you can take a guess. There's a few examples of why you want to enter a market, right? You have some product you think is useful to this market, and you want to gain distribution. You want to gain more market access. You want to diversify your products. Like you're afraid that maybe, oh my God, like my products are not going to get used as much. Like I'm going to lose market share in my areas. So I'm going to try and diversify my products. Preempt and petition is really cool. It basically is saying like, hey, if we don't do anything, our competition will do something that'll be really bad for us. We should do it just so our competition can't do it. It's a very cool idea. But I think an example of that, like what is something you would do just so your competition can't? Yeah, for example, like what is it called? Blackstone or BlackRock. I was mixing them up. They bought like a shit ton of warehouses all over the world. This may not be the exact. Actually, no, this is not the best reason. I think Amazon also does. Like, okay. So when Amazon was trying to compete with Flipkart in India, Amazon bought like a shit ton of like warehouses all over, like in important locations, just so Flipkart couldn't buy it. And if Flipkart can't buy it, it's going to be harder for them to provide the kind of product and speed that Amazon can. So it's like, do something so your competition can't do it. It's a cool reason to do something. Taxes, we have tax hacks that if we enter this market for that's the 6-minute timer. Okay. Sometimes you enter a market because entering electric vehicles is kind of hard because a lot of tax write-offs. So maybe you want to try and reduce your taxes, so you enter a new market. Synergies, building this other thing would help us reduce our costs for whatever reason. Okay, so you figure out why you're trying to enter this market, and then so now it's like ideas of viability, right? How much of this market are we going to be able to capture? So the way to like, if we do capture, like what's the end result here? So you want to ask, how large is this market? In the case of real estate, it's very broad. Maybe you want to be more specific, but what is real estate? Real estate can be like building buildings. It can be furnishing. So you like kind of, maybe you decide which one you want to talk about, or you can talk about them all cumulatively. How large is the market? It's pretty large. How likely is the market to grow? AKA what change is about to happen? There are likely to lead to a lot of growth. In the real estate case, you can talk about many things. Some of them are, the need of the home is dramatically changing. Once upon a time, home used to be the place you sleep, you rest, you go to an office and work. Work from home is becoming a very massive phenomenon. And consequently, the needs of a home to be able to meet like work from home requirements are changing. So the chances are like there's going to be growth in homes that are built for that reason. So that maybe there's some growth in that space. We're also noticing, there's also like a larger people are buying more and more smart home devices, smart cameras, smart Amazon Alexa, smart TVs. Like there's like a rapid growth of making your home smarter and more ambient computing responsive to you. So the chances are there's going to be massive growth in like the ambient computing space and the needs of home for work from home people. So you can talk about that. And so we think the market is big, and more importantly, it's also going to grow. More people are going to do these two things. So now what you care about is, yes, you say the market is large, but it's irrelevant if the competition is going to meet all the needs. Like, there's no point of going to a market where your competition is going to destroy you. So what is the current state of competition? Who is competing in these markets? And why might we or why might we not be able to capture the market better than our competitors as well? Do we have is there any reason we can have differentiated products? Like, hey, if you're Google, we're pretty good at building smart home devices, right? Maybe our competitors can't do that as well for whatever reason. What are our core competencies? Are we technologically better? Do we have more funding? We can just dump more money in than anyone else can. Do we have some way of reaching users that no one else does? Why are we likely to capture growth, this oncoming market growth, better than anyone else? And if there's no reason that we are likely to be able to better capture, then we probably should enter the market. If there is, probably should. Barriers to entry. How hard is it to enter this? So if you want to try and compete with Amazon, like you need a lot of money. If you want to compete with how fast they deliver, you need a lot of warehouses. It's very, very expensive to try and compete with Amazon. If you buy a warehouse and it turns out you failed as a company, yeah, like go ahead now, like liquidating the warehouse is hard. So it's hard to enter, and things that are hard to enter, generally, if they fail, are also hard to leave. So you want to, ideally you have some market where it's somewhat easy to enter. And then, so once you decide the market's what growing, and you can likely capture the growth that market has, is it profitable? Like if you were to capture X percentage of the, let's say the market is 100 billion, it's going to become 500 billion in 5 years. That's insane growth. And we think we can capture 20% of the market. Awesome. So we're saying we can capture $100 billion worth of market. If we do it, how profitable is this? Is this like something super unprofitable because people are not going to pay enough for it? If it is profitable, let's talk more. Now, so it is, now we've talked about the market is going to grow, we can capture it, and we can do that profitably. How do we enter? You generally have 3 options. And some of you guys pointed this out in here, which is you either build some shit on your own, you acquire a company, or you do a joint venture. A joint venture is like, hey, let's work together. I'll do this, you do that, and we'll together figure it out. But yeah, so that's broadly how you answer, should we enter this market question? And this is my version of it. You can do things like, I had some older versions where I did ProtoSwipe, Porphyry, I did SWOT. And this is what I find comfortable doing now. This tends to meet most needs. And this is, they're related, they're not unrelated. Like ProtoSwipe forces ask some of these questions, ask like buyer pressure, supplier pressure, which is sort of related to competition. So most frameworks, will sort of get at what this is. This is just hard, the order that makes sense to me of doing things. But there's many other, you can use all these fancy frameworks. Okay, sweet. Okay, let's stop again before we go into analytical, and let's ask some questions. What are your thoughts? What questions about entering a market? Also, I'm going to drop the link to the slide deck for those of you who joined a little late. That's the slide deck if you want it. And I'm going to send it out later as well, on email or wherever, but feel free to look around. Okay. Should we research a lot of industries to come prepared to interviews? I didn't. Yes, the Notion page on the slide deck. So if you go to like anywhere where it says my personal framework and you click on it, you can publicly go to the Notion page that answers for each question type. So yeah, the Notion is on the slide deck. Actually, Taylor, can you click on the Notion and make sure it's accessible? Like I think it's public, but just want to make sure. Can you let me know with okay, yes, it's public or something? Okay, in a minute. So I didn't prepare industries. Specifically, I just generally read the news and I'm aware broadly of what's happening, but I didn't do any like very specific prep. Like I like every morning I listen to the news and I maybe read some news on email, and that usually says what trends are going on. Also, I think you have to know it's public. But yeah, so I didn't do it. If you feel, I just broadly kept in touch with the news. Like working from home was all over the news, right? So it was easy to talk about that. So I broadly kept in touch with the news. If you're curious about what specific news, I do this thing called, let me show it to you. I do a bunch of things. I do routers. Routers. Root. How do you spell this? How do you pronounce it? REUTERS. Yeah, I like use routers. I don't know. I use this. I use Wall Street Journal. I just skim through them, and New York Times every morning, quick skim. But nothing out of the ordinary. Should you do it is a more interesting question than did I do it or not? Should you do it? Probably. How do you go about doing it? Well, you basically think of an industry. Reuters. Okay, that sounds right. Thank you, Tom. You just basically think of an industry and try doing this, and maybe you Google some stuff like, of what are the key growth factors for this industry. So that might actually make sense. Like, you should probably do it. It's actually kind of a mistake I did. Good call. Also, I say this: strategy questions are not as common. So usually, because if you're a higher level PM, like, strategy matters a lot. If you are a entry level PM, strategy doesn't matter as much. And you actually remind me of a cool research, a resource for strategy things. Reforce.com has a bunch of cool blogs about. I think it's the website. Like different strategic questions you want to think about in blog. Like, how do you hire the right leader? How do you navigate different types of PMs, growth PMs? It just talks about random product stuff. It's a cool resource, like very, very good product blogs. I think they cover some industries. Not sure though. They're pretty good. Okay. What are we now? Okay, we're on analytical questions. Sweet. Okay. Next question. So this two kinds of analytical questions. One of them is estimate the number of something. And then the other type is like some metric change, how you deal with it. We're going to talk about estimation. I think I have notes for the others on the what's it called? Notion. Okay, so let's take 6 minutes. If you get the question, how many Lyft bikes are in New York City? How do you answer that? But actually, really quick. Before we do that, can you guys drop yes or no in the chat if you want like a quick 5-minute break so we can like refresh our minds? Can you drop a yes for like a yes, I want a 5-minute break, or N is like let's keep pushing. Just drop like a yes or a no in chat so I can figure out if you guys want a quick 5-minute break. No, keep pushing. No, guys, you're anonymous, so if you don't need to agree with the masses. No. Okay. I'm gonna wait for like 10 more seconds. Anyone wants to say yes? All right. Mostly no's. Okay, so we keep pushing. Let's keep pushing. So, so the question is, how many Lyft bikes are in New York City? Okay, you can estimate New York's population. Sweet, it's a good idea. Okay, estimate New York's population. Okay, then what? What else? What else you want to do? All right, so you end the question with New York's population. Here's the population. Boom, that many bikes. So you have 1 bike for each person in New York. Breakdown into types of people in New York. Okay. Age ranges. Sweet. Wait, SpongeBob, why would we want to do that? Why do we want to break people into age groups? Estimate the percentage of population of people who would make use of a bike. Okay. Cool. Okay, we like the ice. Not everyone will use bikes, makes sense. That's why we're going to break it down. Figure out how many people own a car, they use their own method of transportation. So try and figure out what else are people doing, and consequently how many people need bikes. Okay. What else? Or any other thoughts? I'll give you guys a hint. A lot of what you guys are doing now is top down. As in, you're going, what's the population? What subset of the population is going to use bikes? Consequently, how many bikes do we need to meet that need? That's very top down. Is another way to approach the question fundamentally. do you think, SpongeBob? Give me a bad guess. What's a bad way to answer this question? It might be really good, by the way. Like I've had a situation where he says, tell someone give me a bad answer and they give me a great answer, which is very funny. How many square feet of land is in New York City? Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. How much square feet of land and how much, and what sort of, what are lifts? That's a cool idea. It's actually not a bad idea, by the way. I'm gonna, I did something pretty similar. Like that's how I got the answer. I'll talk about that. What are Lyft's competitors? They would have bikes as well, so that would reduce the number that are supposed to be Lyfts. Okay, so when you have, okay, here's how many you want to serve. So if you go top down, you come to an answer of here's how many people you want to serve, and there's actually maybe competitors. So what portion of that is by the competitor? That makes sense. Also, why did I stop putting these on the slide? Competitors. Oh, it autocorrected the spelling to me. Let's go. Okay, how many square feet of land in NYC? I like this one. I'll tell you why in a second. What else? Did I figure out the timer? I did figure out the timer. Okay, it's currently 8:18. We're gonna stop at 8:20. And I'll go through like how I did. Okay, we did Lyft competitors. Should we identify the target customer, then estimate their percentage within the population? Who are there areas with no subways? Identify target customer. Okay, find out how we'll actually use it, and then so like what percentage of population is that? Yeah, that, you want some idea of, okay, this many people who could possibly use it, and out of them, what alternatives do they have? Oh my god, Zoom is. Can you guys say something? Yash from the future, can you say something if you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, sweet. Okay, Zoom freaked out again. I can't read your messages. Okay, I'm going to rejoin Zoom once again. Now I know how to. Okay, I'll see you guys in like 2 seconds. I'll delete. Task manager, Zoom meetings. Wait, I'll be back. Zoom meetings. And we're back. Screen one, share. Sweet. Okay. So let's go into how I did it. See some thoughts we had. Sweet. Okay. So now someone asked me earlier, which is what do people generally unprepare for? I think people prepare for estimation. They go, oh, this is not that hard. This is a good estimation. Going from good to great is actually hard. And I have some notes on how to do that. So briefly, you want to clarify the question, like when you say bikes, what do you mean? What's included? Is it just like bikes? Are there any other competitors besides Lyft? In New York, the answer is no, actually. Lyft has a monopoly on bikes. But you can ask questions. And then you want to take a second to think about it. Like, what information do you need to know? Do you need to know you have how many square miles does New York have? You can think of many questions you want the answer to. Some of it you can estimate. Some of it you just can't estimate. Like, I know, pretty hard to estimate. You can estimate most things, but sometimes there are things you can't estimate. Like, oh, you just want to know the answer. Like, are we focused on all of New York, the New York State? Or are we focused on just Manhattan? Right, you can clarify these things. And then when I asked that, my interview said just focus on Manhattan for now, because New York just doesn't have, like, most of it is Manhattan. So, so on and so forth. Okay, and then you want to make an equation. The equation could be something like what you guys talked about earlier, which is sort of we as a team were talking about, which is what percentage of you want to figure out the number of people in New York, the population of New York, what percent of the population could use bikes, right? Like in the right age groups or whatever. And then what out of that, what percentage on average use other kinds of transport, right? So like what percentage is on a roughly day-to-day basis using bikes, which is pretty hard to estimate, by the way, because there are so many modes of transport, like walking, subway, Ubers, pretty hard to do. And then you can go, okay, let's say this many people in a week need it, how many people are going to use it per day on average? And then if we have this many people using it per day, how many bikes do we need to serve that? You can do that. In this method, you make a lot of assumptions. You're going to be making a ton of assumptions. Making a ton of assumptions means you're more likely to get the answer wrong. You want to pick an equation or a method by which you're going to make fewer assumptions. So what we just talked about was top down. The alternate approach is bottom up. That's the one I use for this question because it's like way easier. So because it's easier because there's fewer assumptions made. So here's the method I used. I said, okay, how many blocks are in Manhattan? The answer is about like 14 by 14, I think, whatever, around that much. Okay, how many? And there are two kinds of biking stations in New York. And I knew this. I just like happen to know this. It's pretty arbitrary. These things you can ask. You can ask like how many bikes are on a rack. I asked, okay, I know there are two types of bike stations. There is large stations, like in big blocks, we have like tons of bikes. And then we have like smaller biking stations in a few places. So I said, okay, on average, how many, like, I was trying to answer how many big biking stations we have, how many small we have. And I said something like every 3 blocks, we have a small one, and every 6 blocks, we have a big one. I said something like that. And then you guess, okay, this is the number of blocks. We're guessing there is this many big ones, this many small ones. And I said, okay, in a small biking station, there's maybe like 10 bikes. On a big biking station, there's like 40 bikes. So once I know how many big stations there are, small stations are there, I can just multiply, like, here's how many bikes in there. Boom, I have the answer. I make much less harder assumptions. Like trying to estimate how people use subway versus bike is much harder than estimating, like making a random guess for, okay, how many blocks do I think there's a single like bike stand on? You make complete, like, every single block seems kind of dumb. Like it seems too many. Every 5 blocks seems somewhat reasonable, something in between. You can make a guess somewhat more easily. Yeah, exactly. That's so similar, right? Guess number of bikes per 100 square feet. Or like I use blocks, like it's easy for me to think about blocks and square feet. For bottom approach, you can think about how many metro stations there are, how many people use bikes to get to other modes as well. That's an interesting one. That's somewhere in between top down and bottom up. So yeah, I'm not saying use bottom up always or use top down always. Yeah, Yash from the future. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Okay, so you don't always want to use top down and bottom up. You just, for a specific question, decide which one you think you're going to make less harder guesses on, and use that one. Okay. Now this is the broad structure. Come with an equation. Think about any edge cases like, oh, actually, people in New York in this area don't use bikes, whatever. And then you want to break down the equation, make some random guesses for numbers like 10 here, and do the math. Once you have an answer in the end, like I estimated this many total answer, you want to like see if that makes reasonable sense. Like, does that sound like a realistic number? This is what a good interview looks like. Now here's how you go from good to like really good or great. So explain why you picked top and bottom up. Like most people will say, they will either do top down or bottom up. You want to say, hey, actually, I considered both options, and this one has less assumptions, and therefore I'll do this. See you, Taylor. So yeah, you mentioned both of them. You picked one of few assumptions. What people will do is they'll do a sanity or a gut check all the way at the absolute end. Like they'll come to an answer in the end, and then they go, is this reasonable? Like, they'll come to some number and they go, this many, and this seems somewhat reasonable. Really, really good people make do a sanity check more frequently. Like when you're coming to the total answer. So for example, the question here was, what is the storage cost? Google is launching a campaign where those who buy Google Pixel phones get 1 year of free cloud backup of all images. What is the storage cost? So you can come to an answer and then do a check, or you can do a check like very frequently. So you can do like, let's say I've come to 12 million buckets. But let's do a quick check. If 80% of Americans have, basically, like, if you broke down the equation into multiple sub questions, like in the lift case, you broke down how many blocks per bike, you broke down how many bikes per stand. You can do a sanity check instead of on the final answer on each thing. So, okay, I'm guessing 5. Does that make sense? Like if I just thought about it, would that be like somewhat reasonable? It's like, yeah. How do you do a gut check? There's generally 2 ways to do a gut check. If you come to an answer X, try and turn it into 1 in X. What does that mean? So something like this. Let's say we decided it costs, let's say we said something like 12 million new Pixel phones are bought per year. You convert it into 1 in X. What that means is like, if 80% of Americans have smartphones and you get a smartphone every 2 years, it means there's about 120 new million phones sold per year. That would mean 1 in 10. So if you're saying 120 phones are bought per year, and we're saying 12 million pixels, that's like saying 1 in every 10 phones bought is a pixel. That seems really high. Like 1 in every 10 phones is a pixel seems really unrealistic. So I reduced that. Like that seems high. I'm gonna reduce it. So you want to do like, you want to try and convert any number you have into like some sense of like 1 in X. That is like easy to think about. Like, do I think 1 in 10 people have a pixel? I don't think 1 in 10 people have a pixel. Maybe you do. Irrelevant. Like whether you do it or not is irrelevant. Point is to like do this gut check. The other way to do a gut check is to do per unit effect, which basically says, let's say you get the total cost to Google is like $50 million. You can ask, the cost to Google to do something. How much is this per pixel phone? Right? If you're saying 12 million phones and $50 million, you're saying about $4 of the phone's cost. The phone costs $750 on average. Like this is something I asked the interviewer. And is it reasonable to think that $4 out of every 750 is going into marketing, right? If you think about it, that's about 0.5% of the phone's price is marketing cost. That seems somewhat reasonable to me. If the answer was 20%, that'd be like, whoa, like is really 20% of our entire production marketing cost? I don't know. So this seems somewhat reasonable. Maybe even a bit low actually. But so you see, this is a cool way to do gut checks. You can avoid doing duplicate computations. Okay. So for example, in this question, which is what is the cost of storing images? We did something like, okay, we got the number of images per year. And we got how many images per day. And then now you're going to recompute how many videos per day and how many videos per year. Whatever. You're going to like restart the computation. Or another cool thing you can do is just say, okay, we got number of images per year. Let's assume someone takes like, for every image they have, like every video they have, there's like 10 images. So you take on average 10 images and then like 1 in every 10 things is a video. So we can actually just, once you have the total number of images per year, instead of recalculating videos per day and then videos per year, we can just say like, let's just say it's 110 and come with an estimation. So doing like these easy to think about ratios is very, very effective. The biggest thing with estimation questions is like you have to do a lot of estimations and you don't have a lot of time. So finding ways to shave time is helpful. So let's say, you can do things like, let's say an average person takes 5 images per day during the week and 10 per weekend day. Really, really good people will do, show that they can do complex things to come to really accurate answers, but they're like, I'm going to choose the easy one. So you could say, hey, I could break people down by image habits by age groups, right? Younger people take more pictures. So I could actually like, instead of taking an overall average of average person, I could break down the person into different categories. And I could make estimations for each category. And then I can come to an overall result. But we don't have much time, so I'm just going to take an overall average. And if you think we need to redo this, or if it fails my gut check later, we can come back and do a more comprehensive version. Okay, and then there are some clarification questions you can ask, which is whenever you're computing the cost of something, there are usually related overhead costs, right? Like if they say calculate the cost of this, you go, okay, yes, I can calculate the cost of that. Are we including overhead costs, like the cost of people we're hiring for maintenance, so on and so forth? So you can, it's like asking clarification questions. It shows you've thought about things. Whenever someone asks you a cost thing, you can always ask an easy clarification question to show you've thought through things, which is, are we including overhead costs or just pure development costs? Always just ask that question, like a little +1 on the interview. Okay, that was a lot. we talked about how to estimate things, and we talked about how to go from like a good estimator to a great estimator. Let's stop for 2 minutes and let's do like questions in chat. What questions do we have about estimation? Oh, by the way, even if you've gone past a section, you have a question about that. Like if we went past product design, but you still have product design, like feel free to ask that. Totally good. What are some good numbers to memorize? Great question. Great question. Let me get you. I remember someone dropping a cool thing. On this Slack channel. Hold on. Oh, okay. So here's some useful numbers to know. Copy image. Let me add this. Yeah. Great question. Yeah, this is. I love that you guys ask these questions because I remember to like give you guys resources. Okay. Boom. I can just add it here. What is this? Oh my god. Boom. There we go. Right, that should answer that question. What else? What are the questions we have? What estimation questions? Okay, I'm not seeing questions. Feel free to drop a question even after. We're gonna move on, but drop a question and I'll stop and answer it. Also, anyone else has any resources that might be useful for numbers to know? Feel free to drop them in chat, and I can I'll add them to the slides. Okay. Do you know when the recruiting timeline normally is, and how possible is to do a sophomore summer internship? Totally possible. The timeline is usually from August to November, with a few companies in the fall. I would, if you look at resources in the end, I'm here, like APM list. Where'd it go? APM list. It'll usually say stuff like that. Like it'll say, okay, what are the intern programs? Which ones are open? Which ones are not yet open? So the ones that are not yet open will open in the fall. No, wait, they are in fall. They'll open in the winter, and the ones that are closed are done. The ones that are open right now. So this is so most companies you will see like closed because they're happening between August and November. Like when you apply for them, a lot of them are just open throughout fall, and some of them are what is it called? Some of them open in the winter semester, like Reddit, Spotify, Tableau, Disney, eBay. Yeah. So I hope that helps. But keep in mind, they're usually rolling things. They have a fixed number of spots, and they keep taking people until it's full. So like applying earlier helps. If you're a sophomore, I recommend also like talking to smaller startups. Like big, well-funded startups will usually have higher, like more advanced PMs early on, but small startups, especially especially the thing like academic innovation. I don't know if you were here when we talked about that, but like entities, universities that are building products usually don't have great PMs. They need people. And you can present yourself as one. The way I actually worked at academic innovation, and the way I did it was I said, hey, I'm a software engineer. I can like do software engineering for you. And I started doing software engineering. And then I said, you guys really don't have anyone doing products, so I'm also going to do that. So I started doing software engineering and product for them. And so like figuring out what they should build and making these specs and so on and so forth. And then I said, oh, hey, you have enough engineers. I should really focus on product. And they're like, oh, that makes sense. So one thing that helps as a freshman or sophomore is to try and do like some tangential internship, like maybe a business analyst or maybe like a software engineering at some smaller like entity that doesn't have enough of these resources, and then try and like start helping a product and slowly start doing product completely. Yes, but I promise you, when they look at your resume, you starting your own thing, like having built a product on your own with a small team, just like independent of any school or class or program, is like what stands out the most. And you go, okay, this person knows what they're doing. Yes, those are my thoughts. Yeah, glad to help. Okay, sweet. Okay, system design. This is the hardest to learn if you are not technical. If you're not a CS major, this was a little tricky. I know people have done it, so it's doable. It's a little tricky, but let's go through it. Drop in chat how you would build Twitter. Yeah, this is a hard question. If you had to build Twitter, how do you build it? Like technically. Drop some thoughts. They can be completely wrong. I'll give you guys, you can go back to about 6 minutes. Wait, can you guys drop your majors in chat? Like, what are your majors? So I get an idea of like where you guys are coming from. I can drop mine. Yes, major. Masters of SI. Cool. Is that when you say MSI? Is that like masters? NFT ladder. Yeah, NFT ladder is a cool name. Oh, cool. CS major, business minor, computer science, BBSCS. A lot of BBSCS people. But I know many PMs who are not BBSCS. Like, in fact, Facebook specifically loves non-BBSCS people. Like, they love like people who are like out of the out of like the regular CS business world. Highly encourages that. So yeah, if you're SI, honestly, you're like, this is what you do. The UI, this is a lot of UI UX. So that's also perfect. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of CS business and SI stuff, which is very good. Okay, so my SI and CS friends, how do you build Twitter? Go ahead, drop random thoughts. It's completely okay to be wrong. Okay, even if you don't know how to build, how do you approach building? Like, do you want to do the database first? Do you want to do like the front end first? Like, what do you do? How are you going to approach this question? If you're afraid of being wrong and your name is still your actual name, feel free to change your name to like something that doesn't make any sense. Like, a lot of people have names like Monkey and Summertime Penguin. So feel free to change your name so it's anonymous. Okay, understanding what components you need. NFT latte, good question. Do I mean like broadly as like what are UI UX things? No, I mean like technically, if you're an engineer, what are like how would you engineer? How would you code it up? So like what are things that engineers would think about when they were building this? Does that answer the question? Like, this is technical building. Yes. Yep. Oh wait, why did I put that here? That's a question, not a thought. Sorry. But yeah, it's technical building. Okay, so you want to understand what components you need. You need users, you need tweets, and you want to figure out what data store. What else? What else you want to do? Okay, Monkey. Let's say you have these components, right? Let's say you've come up with users and tweets, If I need to store this data, what next? You done? Have you built all of Twitter? What else do you need to do? Study the target customer to build proper UI experience. Okay, you want to study UI UX, right? Sure. Please figure out what you want on the front end. This is true. So this is true in like as in the sense that like you would do it while you're building. I think when they ask system design questions, so usually UI UX things that they leave for product design. Like in your product design question, they'll ask like, how do you improve Twitter? How would you like design Twitter? Usually you talk about UI UX things there. This one you talk less about studying UI UX and be like, okay, let's just assume this UI UX broadly. How do you build for it? Like how do you like actually make that happen? So it's less UI UX things, more technically how do you make this UI UX exist? What does each object need to own and what is the relationship between objects? How do you display them? Okay. Is on the you're talking about? Oh, okay, so this is like at the you're talking about like a relational database, like what is the relationship between objects in the database? Is that what you meant, Monkey? Yeah. Okay. Sweet. Okay, so system design is like one of those things that I feel like people are like, oh my god, what? How do I even like become good at this? So I'm going to show you how to do a system design interview, but knowing how to do it doesn't mean you can do it. This is the one of the ones where you want to like you actually kind of have to somewhat study how to build things. So let's talk about how I would answer this question. How do you build Twitter? Oh wait, what? Where's my system design thing? What? Oh, sweet. Okay, fine. Let me give you 2 links. Let me make a copy of this. Make a copy. No. Share this here. I'm not sharing the other one because my interviewer has access to the other one, and if like people like leave thoughts, he's gonna be like, why do other people have access to this document? It's like a private question we ask in interviews. So I'm gonna share this one with you guys. Copy link, done. Actually put it here. Okay. So usually I start, okay, what are the high level things? So actually I did this summary at the end, so it's not important. You want to start with, okay, what are the user requirements, right? What do we want to, so this is the case of design a password vault. And a password vault is like stuff like, it's like a thing that stores different passwords. Like, this stores my password for all these things. So that's a password vault, stores password and allows you to share passwords. So the question here was, how do you design a password vault? Like, how do you build a password vault? So I started, okay, who am I building for? Am I building for individuals that only I'm going to use it? I said, no, I'm building for multiple people because like they're really useful when you have multiple people who want to share passwords. So what do we need to do? We need to be able to store passwords, retrieve them and share. So the first step is you figure out what are the requirements, like what are the user level requirements, and then you do what Monkey suggested, which is data objects. If you're not CS, this might be like, what the hell is this? So here, this is where you want to learn about databases. This man, you can just Google like learn databases. I'm gonna give you guys a link that I find somewhat useful. This is my recommendation how to learn system design, by the way. I said think through these things. Learn system. There's many other ways to do it. These are some of the, so like this is like a cool It does not take 5 hours. I totally overestimated that. But this is like, how would you design a database? So how do you just come up with what objects you need, so on and so forth. So what you would do is, I did, okay. So I did, okay, here I need, in password vaults, you have organizations, right? Like this you want to kind of an account per company. You have users, you have some relation between user and orgs. So you come up with like, okay, what is the data objects and what are the items inside each sort of database? This link will cover that database design. Okay, so you come up with all these, like, here's what I want database to look like. Then you answer questions like, okay, what are the APIs I need? An API is basically, if you're not familiar with an API, this video here will help explain it. It's basically like a function that you can call that gives you data back. So the answering here is like, what functions do we need in our code? We need a function to store a new account or change data. We need a function to delete an account, retrieve. So you think through what are all the functions you need, basically, which relate to APIs you need, and then how would you, what do they do? Am I recording? Please no recording. Yeah, I'm recording, thank God. I was like, is there any chance we stop recording? Okay. You think through this. So you think through all the functions and how they work. So like I'm literally saying, like, this is what I would do in my code. So I'm like saying, I want this function in my code and here's what it does. And then I talk about what do we want on the front end, or like the thing that's on the front end, what I want. See, Ben, after like, yeah, so let's talk about the core functionality and maybe some UI UX things. So yeah, so the broad approach to a system design question is, what are the main requirements? What does our database look like? What functions and APIs do we need? Yeah, this is a whole interview. This is like a 45-minute interview, by the way. Like my entire 45 minutes was just this. Usually, by the way, every single question here we talked about today was an entire 45 minutes. Like if we start with product design, how do we design Slack? That's an entire 45-minute call. How do we, strategy? That's an entire 45-minute call. Estimation is an entire 45-minute call. They're all like each of these questions we talk about today are like their own 45-minute calls. You will, yeah, for the most part. Does that make sense on SpongeBob? Is that the question? Like, is that what you meant? Yeah, sweet. Okay. And then I think through like some front end things. Now, to actually know what to think through is not something I can be like, hey, I'm going to teach you all of computer science in a 2-hour call. It's not going to happen. So what I'm going to put resources here to learn. So these are some useful basic resources and things I recommend. There's this very well-known GitHub for system design. So GitHub system design, yeah, primer. So I know a lot of people use this link. Famous system design resource. So this dude has like, he goes into real depth. Like he's like, you read this, he talks about like, here's how any system works. Like he goes into it. Like, here's how you should do system design. Here's how you get better system design. Here's all the topics you want to learn. Here's how you learn them. It's like super in depth. A study guide, blah, 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 blah. So this is a helpful resource. So this is what I did. I just built things. This is roughly how I learned to build my things. EX45 is a good class to take for this. EX485 is a good class for this. Okay. And then a lot of people use this to get started. So yeah, there's a lot. I'm going to stop here. What system design questions do you have? And I think this is the last thing, by the way. See you, monkey. Thank you for the people who stayed throughout the whole time. Even I know it was a lot, but I'm glad you guys stuck it out. Okay. What questions do you guys have about system design? I think the correct answer is you have a million questions, but feel free to ask them. Is there a website that has a lot of interview questions on it? Great question. The answer is yes. There's tons of places with questions. Honestly, you can just search like I'm gonna do it in front of you. I'm just gonna product management interview questions. And you're gonna get like a gazillion lists. Yeah, like my suggestion is search it. There are tons of lists. It's kind of funny. I'm giving you guys the link to the Google search. Okay, but specifically there's a book called Decode and Conquer, which has a lot of like very like it's just a big accumulation of questions. So let me go find that. Where is that? Yash? No. I have this somewhere. There you go. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, these are cool resources as well. Okay, this is good. Let me make sure this link is accessible. If I go in incognito, can I access this link? Yes, yeah. So this is a book with just like different product management questions. Don't learn from this book. Like, I don't like this book tells you how to do some PM questions. I don't like their answers. I like their questions. Their questions are pretty good. So I would use this as a way to get questions. And you can read some of the answers, but the answers are holy shit. Let me like reduce the size of that link. Make sure it works. That's sweet. I should put that one first because it's not just a Google search. So. Question. Okay, sweet. Good point. Okay, with this, let's just go into like general questions. You can ask me any questions you want for the last like 5 minutes. And because we are so few people now, everyone like feel free to turn your video on and we can just like, this is the few of us left. So we can like happy to answer questions more personally, like with videos on. So if you can turn your videos on, we can like feel free to unmute if we can just have like a quick 5-minute chat on different questions you guys have. Awesome.
Hey, so I had a question for you, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I'm actually a freshman right now, and I'm planning on studying CS. But I was the one who asked you about freshmen, like if they can get internships and like what to do for product management. So can you tell me about your experience with the academic innovation at UMich, like what that is and what you did, and like if that's like accessible to freshmen?
Yeah. So wait, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. This is my Zoom is stuck again. Unfortunate, but if you guys can hear me, I'm gonna keep talking. Hello? Okay. Actually, I'm just gonna restart Zoom really quick. It's been having a really bad day on me today. Task manager. I shall be back in a second. Okay, back. So I can tell you about that specifically. So I did that when I was a sophomore. Didn't do it when I was a freshman. Most I would say I did as a freshman was like build my own product. But to do a PM internship freshman year, uncommon. But the way I found my academic innovation was very like whack. Like I heard about a professor. Like I had a professor in class who was like, "Hey, does anyone know how to code?" And I was in like a climate class. I was in a class where like this professor teaches climate sciences. Like it was completely random, and he goes, "Hey, does anyone know how to code? I need some help." Then I emailed him, and I didn't even go for the class. I just like watched the lecture online. I emailed him like, "Yo, I can code. And I could barely code at the time anyway, but like I said, I can code. What do you want? And he says, oh, I'm looking for an engineer to join me. And I was like, I guarantee you this is like some dude who like wants help with coding and also does not know any product. If you don't know product, you're not going to build great products. So I messaged him and I went, hey, I'll code for you. Started coding for him. And he was a mess. He was like, we should code these random things and none of it made sense. There was no way we are going to get any successful product. So I started going like, hey, we should probably do this. Figure out who our users are. You go, oh, that's a great idea. We should do that. So like started influencing his thinking. And eventually I helped him find more engineers. I got my friends like, hey, we should all work for him. And then eventually I reached a point where I was like, he was like, okay, Yash, I clearly don't know what I'm doing. You seem to know what you're doing. You're in charge of product. So freshman PM internships, very unlikely to get a formal program. Much more likely, you want to find someone who needs coding done, start coding for them, and then start influencing product decisions. So the interesting question is, who needs coding help? There's many ways to do that. You can go on Twitter and say, hey, like go on Twitter, say, hey, I have free time. Who wants to help coding? Join. You could like go to Upwork. Like any websites are like hire like freelance coders. Say I'm gonna help a project and help shape the project. That could be a cool. I think that'd be a cool idea. I never thought that, but like that could work. Like being an Upwork developer for someone and then start influencing their product, that could help. Yeah, like find people. Generally, the way I've seen people do it is one-off. They're either good at designing using Figma or they're good at coding. They're okay enough at each of those things, and they reach out to someone who needs those skills, and then they start influencing product decisions. So as a freshman, find someone who needs help coding, either a formal program or just someone on the internet, on Twitter. Even like seniors, it really does not need to be a formal program. Like honestly, in your freshman year, building a product yourself is epic experience. Building their launches is just as good as any formal internship you're gonna get. Yeah, and I did not do PM my freshman year. I did like, I'm from Dubai, and I didn't have anything my freshman year until like late second semester, like just before the summer. I emailed a million people, like emailed like someone in VC and back home, and they were like, hey, yeah, let's talk about it. And then I interviewed them. It's super random. So my freshman year I did VC. I did not do PM. My sophomore year, I did PM because of academic innovations. Then after junior year, I did 2 internships. I worked at a startup doing product engineering, which is both PM and engineering. So I was in charge of sign up, landing page, and what's it called? Sign up, landing page, and all emails and notifications. And it was my job to figure out what's the best changes to make to those things, and then go and build those changes myself. So I did that at a startup. That's something common. You can help with engineering, and then you also start like, hey, they realize you can do good product work, so you start owning product parts. That helped. And then I did a software engineering internship at Google. And then from that, I applied for the APM program, and then I got that. So that's my sort of brief history. But the most valuable thing was every year at college, I built something. In my freshman year, I built like a hardware, like a nursing bra, like bras that people would wear. Like it was like very outside of tech. There was some tech, like I added tech to the bra. I just did it because it was cool. And then next I started like a social media startup. Like just building things on your own is like the most useful thing. Even for getting product internships, if you want to, yeah. Sweet, what else?
I was wondering, so I'm majoring in business and minoring in CS. And like I know for in business, like there's this like consulting thing where like you get to partner up with like people who are already like have consulting jobs and can like peer mentor you and like have like a ton of tips and stuff. Is there something like that for like product management in like the like engineering school?
Great question. Don't think so. Ross actually has it, by the way. Like the Creative Development Center in Ross has like PMs, and you can get like CUNFT latte. You can get help from what is it called? They have like peer mentors who've done so. Like Sasha Golubova from mProduct, the product management club on campus. She has a full-time Salesforce APM position, and she's in the business school. I don't think she even minored in CS. Like she's purely business. Maybe minored in CS. Not sure. Maybe. And then she's like a mentor. You can ask her any questions you want. And so the business school has like a peer mentor for product management. But like there are you can join like communities. Like I added the Lewis Lynn community. It's like a Slack group where there are people willing to mentor. There is like Lenny's newsletter. He has a community you can join. There's mentorship there, and even like on campus, M Product has a lot of mentorship. Like people who like I'm involved in a product. Sasha is like people who've done PM positions involved. They can usually like guide you if you get like asked for a one-on-one coffee chat. Sweet, what else?
I got a question, Yash.
Okay.
How come you switched from Sui to PM? Because you did Google, right? When
Yeah.
did you want to do a product?
So by the way, this is like a behavioral question. We didn't cover behavioral questions because they generally don't ask you that many, but one of them is like why PM?
Oh, really? Okay.
So and I had two answers. Like I have two reasons. One, I live for it. Like when
Yeah.
I wake up, like this is the shit I think about. Like I was eating takeout today, and I was like looking at the box. And I was like, why is the box cut like this? Like who thought of this design? Why are they doing it? I started thinking about like why the box be cut this way. This is a very PME question. Like how should I cut the box? Very PME. I'm in an elevator, and like a natural thought I have is, yo, how the fuck would a blind person figure out what floor they've stopped at? Like if someone else comes in and presses the floor, the lift's going up and it stops. Like how do I know if I stopped on the right floor? Like so, there's a lot of like product design questions would end up in my mind, and it's oh my god, I'm thinking about the kinds of questions that PMs are thinking about. Maybe that's what I'm interested in. And two, it's a different kind of impact than you're having with Sui, right? And it's sort of preference thing. Like I enjoy I'm better. There are a lot of Suis who are better than me. I'm okay. I'm pretty good, but I'm not as good as a lot of people I know. I've just found myself enjoying being slightly better at answering the question of what should we build than I am at building something. I'm not bad, but I'm not as good as I'm at deciding what to build. So it's a preference thing. Yeah, I think the impact you have is about the same. And also, by the way, you should know, Sui jobs and internships pay more than PM jobs and internships. Yeah, so this is the thing you should know. Like not that much difference, but there is a difference for sure. Like full time is about a 20K per year difference. Not 20, like 15K per year difference. And like Suis will get paid more than PMs.
Right.
So like, and the reason that is because companies think PMs like Suis have as much, if not more, impact than PMs. So it's not an impact difference. I think it's a preference, and the questions you end up thinking about that are different. So if you find yourself thinking, oh, what kind of database do I want to use? A lot more than you end up asking, why did we choose that design? You're probably more interested in Sui than you are in PM. Yeah, try both. See what you enjoy.
Thanks. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Thanks for doing this, by the way. It was really helpful.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, honestly, thank you so much. It's super, super helpful.
I'm glad. I'm gonna keep track of you guys, the people who came. See if you guys are getting PM internships. If you didn't, I'm gonna regret like fuck, I fucked up. We'll see how it goes. So, yeah. Also, reach out. Another thing I did is I reached out to a lot of people for coffee chats. Like every single person who's done a PM internship, like I had a coffee chat with them to figure out what they did. So that helps.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm honestly probably recruiting for Sui this year, but I was thinking next year. I was thinking about, maybe looking at PM or I'm not sure yet. Just because I'm trying to keep both open. I just wanted to get your perspective and all.
Yeah. Wait, were you here from the beginning? Like, were you here for the how to prepare if you have 1 year left? How to prepare if you have Yeah. Sweet. So exactly the point. Like if you want to do Sui first and then product, you're in the category of people who have 6+ months.
Right.
So go to the slide which has 6+ months and do the things on that slide. Yeah. By the way, the earlier youths are like if you have the early you are thinking like, I did Sui first and then PM. It makes sense. You like learn some necessary skills. It's pretty common way of doing things. What's it called? Yeah, like having more than 6 months before you're about to apply. Like if you're going to apply next year, like that's a great spot to be in because then you have the time to actually start something, actually watch this massive YouTube series by Y Combinator, which I really think is the best way to learn product more than anything else anyone's ever talked about. But if you have 2 weeks left, you don't have time to watch a 2-week like video lecture series, right? Like, but if you have 6 months left, like go ahead, spend 2 weeks watching videos on YouTube. It's like an entire playlist, very cool. It's on the slides. So yeah, like being in a place where you're gonna apply Sui now and PM next year is great. Like it gives you an entire year to do cool things, as opposed to having like 2 weeks. It's hard if you have less time, but it is.
That helps. Yeah.
Okay.
Got it. Yeah, I'll definitely keep everything you said in mind. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, of course. I'm gonna end the call now. Make sure I'm gonna email out the slide deck and the recording once that's done. But yeah, awesome. I'm glad you guys enjoyed this. And hopefully everyone here is like a PM at whatever company they want to be. Oh, one last thing actually I should say. I'll tell you companies that prefer like different majors. Like a lot of PM positions will be like, oh, you should have some CS knowledge. Salesforce and Facebook don't give a shit. Salesforce, Facebook, and Redfin don't give as many shits about whether you have a CS major or not, or a CS minor. The other companies give a little more shits of if you have CS. So the tip. Yeah, awesome. All right, guys. See you soon. I'm glad you enjoyed this. I am absolutely dead mentally. So
I
I'm
can
gonna
imagine.
crash for a bit and then finish up some last minute work.
All right.
All right.
See you around.
You guys.
Thanks.